Alright, starting a new project today, one that I've been waiting on for quite some time. New house is getting close to being done. I'm going to lay the slate tile for the hearth in front of the fireplace. I'm going to install the stone facing for the fireplace. And then finally install a walnut mantle that I had milled down from a log I cut down off this property about 5 years ago when I first started this whole project. Let's get to it. Alright, so here's the natural slate that I'm going to be using for the hearth. It is real stone, it's not a reproduction, and it's got the texture to it, which is what I was really looking for. I didn't want something extremely smooth or polished or glossy, anything of that nature. A lot of the finishes in this house are going to be older wood, stuff that I took out of the old house that I tore down, so I wanted more of that rustic natural vibe, and so this is exactly what I was looking for. These are 16 by 16 inch tiles. I'm going to put 4 across, and then it's going to be 1.5 deep, so I'm going to have to cut 2 of these in half. The half section will go in the back, and then the full ones will be pulled up front. Then the rest of this room is going to be carpeted, so you need a transition to go from the tile to the carpet. Really what that does is protect the edge of these tiles. So if you were to step here, as the carpet will compress, you'd be putting a lot of pressure on the edge of that tile. This metal edge here kind of takes the brunt of that for you, or for the tile, so just saves your tile and hopefully stops cracking. So I have this aluminum finish rail that will do that job for me, and it is a bronzed finish. Almost looks like it has a little bit of a texture to it as well, so I think that should go well with the rest of the wood that I have here. So that's what we're doing tonight, and that is the products that we're going to be working with. First thing I'm going to do is get started on cutting 2 of these tiles in half, and then we'll get going. Okay, we have our pieces cut now. Now I'm going to go through the process of laying this tile out. So the first thing I'm going to do is find the center point of my fireplace. So there's a pretty good look of how it'll look, and they're centered directly on the line that I had marked there. There is some shape to those tiles, as you can see. I mean, it's natural stone and there's variation, obviously. The next step will be cutting this rail. I'll measure the distance there, here, and here. Cut these at 45s, and then we'll be ready to put some mortar down and put this in place, and then start laying the stone inside of that. Okay, so I have everything laid out. I'll walk you through a little bit how I figured this out. I made the line down the center. These are 15 3/4 inch tiles. I'm putting a 1/8 inch gap between them. And then if you look on the inside of this transition piece, there's a small 1/8 inch tab that keeps the tile, gives you a nice even edge away from this. So from that face to the outside edge was 3/16 on both sides. So if you add all that up, it came to 63 3/4 inches this way, and then 24 1/8 inches away from the wall. I built this put this wood frame on the ground just to make sure everything was square. I'll take that out obviously after I get everything laid, but it's only in there temporary just to keep everything in the right place, keep everything square. I have something to push this metal transition piece against, so I make sure I'm getting it all the way to where I need it to be. So next thing to do is to get out the compound, start laying that down and start laying these things in place. Okay, this is what I'm using as far as mortar, just what I could pick up from Lowe's. I made sure I got one that said it would work for natural stone. As far as instructions, make sure you're in a good temperature range. Make sure your substrate is clean and dry. Trowel on a layer onto the substrate. Use the toothed edge of the trowel, and I got 3/8 inch trowel to do that, to put the grooves in there. And then you're going to butter the back side of each one of these tiles and then place them in there, and then, you know, rocking them in place and adjusting them until you get them all in the right spot, the spaces done appropriately. Okay, we're going to start troweling this into place. Okay, next I'm going to take my notched trowel. I got it in all the corners here, pretty good layer spread, and I'm going to put lines away from me. Okay, the next thing is to press the transition pieces into place, and that's where I'm going to be counting on these boards to keep me in the right spot. You want to press them in there so that the grout comes up through the gaps in the transition. Get it good and seated in there. Make sure all your corners meet up nicely. Okay, I'm happy with those. Now it's time to start buttering the back side of these and setting them in place. Okay. Now we're going to set this in place, and we're going to go, no, hold on. Clean up my edges here. just going to set that in there for now. I'm going to get all of these in place with the spacers between them, and then I'll go about trying to finesse and level everything. So there we go. That's where we're going to leave it for the night. I'm pretty happy with that. I probably should have left slightly a little more room for air when I place these boards. These spacers are kind of squishy a little bit, and when I tried to use these hard plastic ones, which are a hard 1/8, I couldn't get them in there, but that's fine. I'm fine with smaller grout lines. I'm happy with it. There is some slight places where there's a change in elevation, but it's due to the unevenness of the stone. I put pressure on all of them individually and tried to adjust them so that I could minimize that as much as possible. But no, I'm super happy with it. I'll have to get a charcoal color grout to fill these lines, but I'll have to look at what the dry time is on this before I do that. I'll probably pull these off in the morning, but I'll leave them there for the night. And tomorrow we'll get started putting the facing stone up here. Thanks for watching.